I did X, Y, Z. How does this person feel that I did this to them? Right? And so that sort of ability to sort of model how other people feel, that ability to sort of model future situations. How would my actions affect other people? If I did this thing, how would this make this person feel? And so, empathy is a form of propositional hypothetical. Empathy is a form of breakfast question, right? And so you have, like the majority of people in society that are running around, they don't have that ability to answer the breakfast question. So by proxy, they don't have any empathy, right? So that is another interesting sort of observation that I really noticed, is that, the breakfast question is related to the ability to feel empathy as well, right? And it's also related to, the ability to entertain, to sort of think ahead, like to think into the future, right? Because if you really want to, talk about reacting to emotions, if you want to talk about reacting to also base animal instincts as well, if you want to talk about, hunger, thirst, lust, right, like survival instincts or stimulation, right? Just in general, you have a lot of people who they fall for a lot of the codes in society. They get addicted to drugs. They consume product and get excited for the next product because they're essentially reacting to the emotions that they have without really observing it. So these people are sort of the sort of consumers. But this is also where you get people who, they go to prison for the stupidest shit. What they essentially do is they rob a gas station for $20, right? And there's zero cost-benefit analysis that is going on inside of their head. There's zero, thinking ahead to the future. And that is why you also get this sort of brand of people who, they just react to their emotions, they react to their base instincts and their base impulses. And it's really stupid stuff that they do, right? Because of the fact that they lack that ability to observe their own emotions and to observe their own thoughts, right? So I just wanted to sort of make a quick video just sort of, analyzing that, because that really does seem to explain why is it that, crowds are so easily controlled. Why is it that people fall for the dumbest shit? Is because people are not operating from a sense of truth. They're not operating from a sense of, okay, I want to know what's true or false. They're operating from their base emotional impulses. They're not observing their emotions. They're sort of reacting to their emotions based on what their environment tells them. It's almost like a robot. If you look at how a robot works, like a robot will have, various sensors, like a camera, like a microphone, like, ultrasonic sensors and things of this nature. And so what happens is, the robot is programmed to react in a predictable way based on what their environment tells them. Right? This is how a lot of people act, and this is why they are golems. This is why they're sort of robotic, non-player characters, is because they get this stimulus from their environment, they feel a certain emotion or they feel a certain, primal instinct, and they react upon that without even thinking about it. Without even thinking about it for even just a second. Okay, I want to think before I react. No, they're just reacting to what their environment tells them to do. And this is why politicians so easily manipulate crowds, is because, yet again, these people, that they run towards what makes them feel good, and they run away from what makes them feel bad. If something makes them feel good, it must be true. If something makes them feel bad, it must be false. If something makes them feel good, then it must be morally good. If something makes them feel bad, then it must be morally evil. Right? This is the way that the majority of people in society think. Is that they're not thinking, okay? That is the way that they're operating from. They're operating from a place of using their emotions as sort of like their main epistemology. They're using their emotional instincts or their emotional sort of base impulses as a way of determining the truth, as a way of determining morality. It's just, the wind of their emotions. And this is why, politicians will sort of whisper sweet nothings into your ears, or they'll say, 2 more weeks, right? Trust the plan. 2 more weeks, and this sort of savior figure is going to fix everything if you just vote harder, if you just believe in this person or that person or this leader, right? And so this is why, people fall for the dumbest shit, is because if you're self-aware or conscious in any sense of the word, you're going to be confused whenever you look at these people. You're going to go, okay, why are you falling for this? If you think logically, even for a second, if you have basic logic, if you have the basic ability to detach yourself from your emotions in order to see what is true or false, you're going to be confused. Why are people falling for this? How are people falling for this? Well, I'll tell you why people are falling for that dumb shit. Is because of the fact that they're not thinking from the truth. They're not operating from a sense of, whether or not something is true or false. They're just operating based off of their emotions. They're not operating from a place of self-awareness, analyzing information, being able to observe their own thinking. Okay, they're operating based on their emotional impulses with zero thought. Okay, and that is why the majority of people in society behave like robots. That's why they behave like cattle. That's why they behave like, non-player characters or golems, okay? Is because they go towards what makes them feel good, and they go away from what makes them feel bad in an emotional sense. Okay, so that is something that is really important to sort of understand about like the psychology of the Hylics or the normies or the non-player characters, right? These people running around who don't have the ability to answer the breakfast question. Why do they behave the way that they do is they behave the way that they do because of the fact that their emotions are all they have. They feel their emotions, they act on their emotions, and that's all. That's all. And they go towards what makes them feel good, and they go away from what makes them feel bad. They don't care about whether or not something is true, because whether or not something is true to them is whether or not it makes them feel good. Whether or not something is good or bad, good or evil, to them is contingent upon how it makes them feel. So people are based on their feelings in society, and that is how people are controlled, and that is why, people fall for the dumbest shit. That is why people behave the way that they do, is because they're not operating from logic or truth, they're operating from their emotions, right? But yeah, that's the video.